The new challenges experienced by a caregiver often work to isolate that person because the difficulties are not easily understood by those who are not directly affected. Even family members can become distant due to the inability to process the needs and experiences of the caregiver. What do you say to someone who is struggling with the new reality of becoming a caregiver? To the wife of 50 years who is now making decisions about the care of her husband, who once was so capable. To the young couple who, after the birth of their first child, realizes that life will never be the same because of a birth trauma or genetic disorder. To the family of the wounded veteran, who now requires 24/7, 365 care because of his injuries, both seen and unseen. In all of these situations, someone becomes a caregiver despite the lack of preparation. Life can change in an instant. Everything you've ever known can become unknown, and every goal you have ever made changes into a single goal to just make it through the day. Life takes on a different perspective when everything that seemed so important yesterday becomes so trivial today. Those who become caregivers often do so without prior warning or training. For almost all caregivers, knowledge is gained through on-the-job training in a discipline that is not well defined. The physical transition from parent, spouse, or family member to caregiver is instantaneous. However, the intellectual, emotional, and spiritual transition often takes much longer. The physical transition happens at the moment of birth or diagnosis or injury. However, intellectually, there's a lag because the mind is trying to rationalize what is being experienced versus what a person expected to happen. Failing to be able to rationalize these two, the mind continues to try to define what is being experienced so the problem can be identified, the solution determined, and the steps taken to solve the problem. However, the problem cannot be fixed, so the mind continues to resist the new reality. In order for the mind to catch up with the physical realities of being a caregiver, the mind has to come to a place of acceptance. For a man, accepting a problem that cannot be solved is not comfortable. This inability to fix the situation begins to invade the emotional aspects of a man's life and results in anger and fear. For a woman, she develops an unrealistic belief that there was something more she could have or something should have been done. The inability to correctly identify the cause and effect of the circumstances leads to guilt and depression. Neither of these two responses are rational, but they are very normal. Both men and women experience deep emotional suffering when their child is born with a disability, or a spouse of many years is diagnosed with Alzheimer's, dementia, or a terminal disease, or a veteran returns home with PTSD or combat injuries. The man, experiencing emotions which he is uncomfortable, begins to wall himself off from the emotions. He finds ways to avoid the situation and becomes emotionally distant. He desperately needs someone to walk alongside of him, but he would not admit it because it would be a sign of weakness. Unfortunately, if and when he tries to share his pain, many men who are not in his situation fail to notice his cry for help. This creates a downward spiral of separation until it begins to impact his spiritual walk. The woman, experiencing emotions that expose her deepest beliefs about herself, begins to overengage. The natural ability of a woman to nurture becomes like a gene that overexpresses a protein and causes abnormal cell growth. Everything concerning her loved one becomes more important than her own needs. Without caution, she experiences weariness. She is physically exhausted, intellectually spent, emotionally drained, and spiritually weak. The psychological impact of being a caregiver needs to be acknowledged and addressed. If you are a caregiver, don't resist the need to talk to a professional about your struggles. It is natural to be confused about life when it doesn't turn out as you had planned. And it is not a sign of weakness to admit you are struggling. Actually, it is a sign of strength to face your pain and do something about it. And that is something to think about.